Hey, it's Scott. And I'm here down in Miami at a disaster medicine conference. And we had the pleasure in the exhibit hall of meeting Wendy, who is a wicked smart epidemiologist from the Florida Poison Control Center. And with that, we're going to go ahead and just tape these next couple of videos specifically involving some really neat things that we learned in chatting throughout the conference about all things poison control. So with that in mind, simply, Wendy, for lack of a better term, what is poison control? Why don't we start with that?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So often when people come to my table, they maybe have heard of the poison control hotline, but maybe they think of us only in the context of, for parents of small children. And it is true, of course, little children eat weird things, but the poison control hotline or the poison helpline is available actually for people of all ages. And today at the conference, we're really focusing more on how we support hospitals and, adult types of poisonings. And we have a huge range of types of poisons, things we address. So it can be anything from carbon monoxide poisoning to medicine overdose to, there are so many different things, even venomous bites and stings. So we're there to assist. It is 24 hours, 7 days a week. And there are 55 poison control centers around the United States. So wherever you are in the US, there's a poison center that helps you.
So when you call the 1-800-POISON-HELP-ME, which is not the official number, but in casual conversation, that's what I like to refer to. Because back in the day, they used to have the Mr. Yuck stickers and stuff
right,
of
and there
that
were
sort.
different numbers. Right now, there's a single national number, so it makes it a little easier.
Right, which is really huge, because
Yeah.
you used to figure out, depending on where you're
Yes.
at, which number did you have to call, and if you called the wrong number, then they had to transfer you to somebody. And
Yep.
so is that really how it works now? You call the 1-800-POISON-HELP-ME, and make sure, though, we were talking yesterday, which just cracked me up, about make sure that you dial the correct number, which sounds so basic, but if you could explain briefly why.
Well, so we would love someday to have a 222 number, right? Something very simple, easy to remember, but
just like 911.
Exactly. So we don't have that. What we have is 1-800-222-1222, which is kind of a mouthful, we understand. So we do recommend people save the number into their cell phone as on their contacts in a quiet moment when they don't have shaking hands and they're not panicked, because if you dial the wrong number, for instance, there is one variation of it that is actually indeed a sex hotline. So not what you need in a crisis. And I actually dialed this myself, and I knew it was not the right number because they were asking me if I wanted to talk to a man or a woman, and I was pretty sure it didn't matter for a poison emergency.
So note to self, highly recommend put this in your phone, save it under poison control, save it under something of that sort. Yeah. So as you said, you actually know the correct number.
Yeah. And a lot of our callers now tell us that, I Googled the number when I needed it, which is usually fine, but what if you don't have internet in that moment? So we'd really like people to have it saved in the phone so it's ready to go. All you need is a phone connection, which pretty much, most people have these days. So.
And just finish up this one if we could, when you called the 1-800 phone line, it originally, back in the day, we used to call the Rocky Mountain Poison Control Center, where it seemed like it was based out of Colorado somewhere.
Yep.
How does it work now? You call the 1-800 number, but I'm in South Florida or I'm in North Dakota.
Yeah, so as of right now, the 1-800-222-1222 number connects you to the Poison Center affiliated with your area code. And so, my area code is South Florida, so my calls come to the center in South Florida where I work. But, if you're traveling around the country as you do, your call will likely go back to the Poison Center affiliated with your home zip code. So it's not a perfect system, but often that doesn't matter because, if you've gotten into something that's at a target, it's going to be the same information everywhere in the country. It really only comes into play when someone has a bite or a sting, some sort of flora or fauna, that you really need to be served by that local center.
So then if you call, like you described, so I have a 219 cell phone.
Yes.
So if I were to call the 800 number, they would reroute it to an Indiana Poison Control Center.
There is a Poison Control Center in Indiana. They're
which,
wonderful.
like you described, works great for something typical stuff that you happen to have an issue with.
Absolutely.
But if I'm in South Florida and it gets rerouted to Indiana, can they then reroute it to South Florida saying y'all play with this far more than we do?
Yes.
Can you
Yeah.
kind of, help a brother out and lend us some insights in regards to whatever this specifically might be?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so for, if you have a clinical question or you're trying to treat a patient, obviously you want to know what the local resources are, like which hospital should this person go to, which, will have the correct antivenom or that type of thing. So yeah, there is a real strength of having local centers, and we all have our backdoor numbers so we can transfer callers if needed.
So again, we're going to be having several of these Gimme Five, so we're going to be taping throughout this session here in Miami. But with that, just simply, Wendy, thanks so much. We'll talk in a couple minutes.
My pleasure.